I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of Councilman
Yes, actually, George Washington's building from after the war was right down the block on the corner, and the township building's across the street. So it's got some history here, and I brought a little more to it.
We've known each other for maybe 2 to 3 years now. I believe we actually first made contact through a mutual friend at our Catholic church. One of the business administrators lives here in our town, and he's gotten very active in the community, gotten involved with our meetings and attending them, showing interest and concerns and things going on in the town. So it's a small town with only 2,300 people, so you come across the same people all the time, and you just get to know each other over a period of time.
So I was well known in the community. I hit the national news, the international news, because of my past history, because of the work I'm doing around the world and also in the country and in the immediate area here, the local area. And the mayor recognized the work I was doing, and he floated my name to the township, to the council, to be possibly sit as a councilman.
One of my duties as the committee chair is to provide 3 names to fill that vacancy, and I provided to the municipal clerk. John was one of the names that we included on that list, and our council amongst themselves elected to pick him and another individual to fill those 2 vacancies.
One of the things I advocate for is the anti-bullying. I do a lot of talks in this because even with my situation, you have people, and I have big shoulders. It doesn't bother me. I kind of let it roll off me, but young kids don't have the ability to do that. They can't express themselves the same. It's a little harder on them. So I see what the adults and the media have done to me to try to destroy the positive way I'm living. I just use that as something to base my talks on, and to tell kids, if you're doing something positive, continue in the right path. We all make mistakes in life. God will judge us. Don't let that get you down. Stay confident. Do not listen to the outside talks. And when you're at home and you're a child and they can still bully you from the computer, those are people usually they're insecure, insignificant. And if you could do one thing, follow my path today. If you make those mistakes, people should have an open arms to somebody that's doing the right thing now. Not living in the past. We can't go back there. You can't change it. Just continue and understand that you got to go in the right direction. And this is about being a better you every day, not about what anybody else thinks. Originally, I started the mob genre. I was bringing in guests. I was bringing autists, psychiatrists. I was bringing all kinds of people on the show. Andrea Giovina came on the show. And so speaking directly about her, I have a lot of respect for her for a lot of reasons. One, she's an entrepreneur, capitalist, right? So I look at people that change their lives and they're doing the right thing and making money the legitimate way. There's nothing, I won't begrudge anybody that does that. My life started off in the direction of a criminal underworld. And I got to laugh because that was my natural schooling. I was raised around my father's friends, who was Lucky Luciano's first cousin, Charlie Blackie Luciano. And that was the first cousin of Charlie Luciano, Lucky Luciano. So those are the people that I was taught by, the people I looked up to. Later on in life, when I get experience in the world and I see the street world for what it is, I look at people like President Trump that I look up to, or I look up to Jack Ciattarelli that's running for governor in New Jersey. And the people I started to associate with were good people, people that were living decent lives, that were living a life of faith with God and school and education and confidence. So that my life completely turned, and I wanted to go back to being Johnny Alite, the baseball player, the scholarship winner, the Series 7 stockbroker. I had the chance to turn direction, and when I got that opportunity, I wasn't going to falter on it. I went this way. I'm ashamed of my past. I also miss my past in a lot of ways because that's my childhood. So it's a mixed feelings with it. And I use the terminology a lot. You are what your zip code is. And unfortunately, I grew up on the streets of Jamaica Avenue. And when you grow up in inner cities like I did, and like a lot of the kids do and the youth do, you end up making the wrong turns because that opportunity is so fast to go in the wrong direction to make quick money. And that's why I'm so entrenched in working with the inner cities. I understand them, they understand me. And so when I do these talks, I do them out of a concern and love for them that they don't end up like I did. You're gonna walk through hell if you go in the wrong direction. And part of that is, in the streets is violence, drugs, mental health issues. I lost my daughter to fentanyl almost 3 years ago in August. And this is something that's dear to my heart, obviously. It's my baby, and I don't want anybody else to lose their kid. I can really understand the heartfelt emotions from anybody from the street with any kind of issues like this. I was just at the Black Poster Project with the head of DEA, Frank Tarantino, and Dee Gillen, who runs the program. And one of the things I spoke about is there's a difference between somebody like myself that was on the street as a young guy selling drugs, not because I had a drug problem, because I was a criminal. I wanted to profit off of people that were using and buying my drugs. Now, as somebody that is older, understands the mistakes I made, there's a big difference with somebody who was using drugs, selling drugs just to get high, not for profit. And they should be treated differently. And mental health, it goes hand in hand with it, just like our veterans. There's 50,000 on the streets of America. They have mental health issues because of the things they saw, the drugs they used because of it. We did that documentary that I was involved with you guys on Kensington. And it's a shame to give up on all these people, whether they're children or adults. It's mental health, and I think this country needs to be able to offer that to everybody. We should subsidize it somehow. Instead of the billions and trillions we're sending to other countries, we should start here and help all our children and people with all kinds of mental health and chemical addictions. The prison system in general and prison reform, I've spoken about the guards. The guards are very abusive. I've talked about guards, and then there's a good percentage of them are good guys. They do the right thing. Now, I'm not saying all of them, but I'm saying probably, if I had to give a fair estimate, it was 25% of them, maybe even 30% of them are abusing the inmates. And there are people like me that I know of. Oscar Lugo 1 from Philadelphia, who got about 300 years. They broke it down to 100-something years. It should have been a 12-year prison sentence. He has no violence in his record ever. He has no violence for 20 years in prison ever. He doesn't have a shot in prison ever. And I think the abuse of the system needs to really be looked at and revamped. And I'm not saying for the people that are out there, saying too bad for the criminals out there. There are all criminals out there. I'll be the first to say, because I was in every jail around from Brazil to America, that there are inmates that aren't rehabilitatable. But there also are a good percentage of them that are. And I'm the poster child for the people that don't think it's possible. But I know it's very possible. Education is a big form of that. And we should be offering more education, more family time. We have prison systems full of guys that weren't drug dealers like me, but they were drug addicts that need rehabilitation, mental help, not prisons, because they're not actually criminals. I do believe in personal rights. I do believe in gay rights. I do believe in transgender. I just don't believe in transitioning young kids at ages 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. There's a reason we have laws, and I believe that we don't teach enough kids confidence. I was one of those kids. I wasn't a dummy. I didn't have the confidence to go in the right direction. As I grew and as I educated myself, I learned to have self-confidence. And then I built my people around me who I associated with that also gave me confidence to move forward in the right direction. And a lot of them were law enforcement, so I'm strongly pro-police. One of the things I think is a misconception, and especially with fentanyl, is as we were kids, and myself, most kids and college kids especially, dabbled with drugs. Dabbling with drugs aren't somebody is necessarily an addict. It's somebody that goes out and has a couple of drinks is a difference in an alcoholic. You know, my daughter played around with Percocet, would take Percocets. You know, I try to have those discussions with her. She may have been hooked on it. You know, in my opinion, there's a difference between mental, again, and addiction to drugs and alcohol. I think a lot of her issues were mental. You know, she had some mental issues going on with depression and anxiety. Me not being around, being in prisons, separation from her mom in another state. I think that all contributed. But she was murdered by fentanyl. I want to make this very clear. She took one pill. She wasn't out partying all night. She wasn't out, you know, doing heroin, drinking, snorting coke, eating an up or a downer, you know, speed. This was one Percocet early in the morning after a night of celebrating her birthday with children and other mothers, not out partying. Got up in the morning, took one Percocet, laid down, was waiting for a flight at 4 o'clock to come home to me. She lived with me. And it was laced with fentanyl, unbeknownst to her. And since then, I've suffered. My family suffered. I lost my daughter. My grandson lost their mother. And the number of kids that die from opioids a year, and adults in this country, is about 110,000. But I believe it's closer to 150 to 200,000, because unless you have autopsy, you would not know that there's fentanyl in their system. And there's communities like the Jewish community, Hasidic community, do not religiously believe in autopsies. So that number is even greater than that we know of. So when you talk about solitary confinement in prison, I know it very well. In Brazil, they tortured me there. They tied me there. There was no lights in my cell there, unlike the United States. They feed you when they want to feed you. They don't shower you. You are sitting in water on ant-filled rock stone. You're not getting any kind of bed. Bedding, pillows, covers, that doesn't exist in Brazil. You shit in a hole, excuse my language, you pee in a hole. And the torturous conditions, they would tie you at times, slap you around, with rubber, they got these rubber hose things that they hit you with. So the outside contact, they try to cut you completely off of. So I understand the torturous conditions of Brazil's solitary confinement. Now I'm going to take it to the modern America. And some of these guards abuse their positions. Again, they can fabricate these numbers. So when they show inmates are fighting, they're supposed to separate them into different units. What they do now to get even with the system, to lie to the public, lie to the mass, lie to the media, is they're saying they're having a lot of violence in their jails, but they're advocating for that violence. It's very simple for these guards to advocate. They tell other inmates what an inmate's in for. They give up their paperwork. They can have a guy from the street they know to tell the inmates inside to hurt them. They help bring weapons in. When there is a fight, they don't separate them. They put them in a unit where other members of that same group are in another unit, so they let them know he's the guy that had the fight with that guy. So they have ways to instigate the violence on a regular basis from a certain inmate. I do get some of that stuff, but they have ways to keep us there. We had Zelensky was a warden in Allenwood. That was, she's a perfect example. I've used her often. She tied me to a chair. She wouldn't send me out for medical care because I had epilepsy. If there's extreme violence on a regular basis from a certain inmate, I do get some of that stuff. But they have ways to keep us there. We had, Zelensky was a warden in Allenwood. That was, she's a perfect example. I've used her often. She tied me to a chair. She wouldn't send me out for medical care because I had epilepsy. She refused to send me out. Instead, she tied me to a lieutenant's desk. She had, and I don't know, she denied it, but one of the guards was spitting in my food. An inmate told me he was pissing in my food. So there's no way to know what they're even doing to our food. And again, there's a good percentage of inmates, I think, that aren't redeemable. I don't believe there's redemption in them. I'm not a big advocate of pedophiles or child molesters or pornography of children. So I'm not talking about those type of inmates or rapists. I'm talking about inmates that may have not have any violence in their jacket, inmates that are being accused on just under investigation and they're thrown into solitary confinement for a 3-month period and with extensions because they said the investigation isn't over. I'm talking about inmates that are in solitary confinement and one of the guards in the facility that's watching over us in the SHU lies and said that we were aggressive to them. They hit us with further charges and we have to wait for our DHO, which is an internal court system, could take 3 to 4 weeks. And they can drag you out like Zelensky did to me and kept me in the hole for a year. Let me out for a couple of days and put me back in the hole. She abused a guy named Cowboy who ends up dying of a heart attack in prison. He didn't eat his meal, which he wasn't hungry, he threw it away, and she told him if he doesn't take it back out of the trash and eat it, she's putting him in solitary confinement. This is the abuse that there's no oversight on. And I think there's got to be outside groups that has to come in and oversee what's going on in the prison system because we have no access. They'll tell you to write. By the time you write these complaints, and when they find out you're writing against the system, they even give you further action. So this is the abuse of, that the system endures. And what they're not understanding is the more you do this to these inmates, a lot of them, not all, when they come home, they're going to get more aggressive. They're going to hate the system. They're going to go after the police. So I look at a lot of these politicians also, and they're very, when they're defunding the police, you're only hurting the inner city. You're not helping them. They know that because the politicians have their private security. They have fences around their houses. No different than the comment the Pope made when you have gates and fences around the Vatican. So I'm not in agreement because I know both sides of this. They need somebody like myself and people like me that we understand the system, that are, we believe in the system. I do believe tough on crime, actually. But there has to be a way of judging who should get released and the way, who should go to solitary confinement. Why? But we can't just believe these prison guards. I believe personally that the police, the everyday police officer on the street is 99% very good guys out there to do their job. They're not looking to do anything but that, take their pay. They're civil servants. But I believe it's a different thing with the guards in the prison system. I think that needs a total overhaul. And there's a lot of good men and women that work there, but there's a lot of bad. And I think the problem is the bad know how to manipulate the system on some of the things I was telling you. As far as transparency in prison, there isn't any. Even the medical, when you're in solitary confinement, they have to come by your door. So what they do is just walk past your door very quickly. Sometimes you're laying down and, obviously you're in that cell for 24/7. You're supposed to be getting exercise an hour a day, but they just throw you in another cell for that hour. So it's a ridiculous move. Showers, same thing. You're supposed to get showers 3 or 4 times a week in the SHU. Sometimes you don't get it for a week or 2. Your food, the same, same situation. If you're banging on the door, you have a guard that is heartless, and he won't send your food over. There's no way to prove you didn't get it. They turn cameras off. They turn the body cams off. There's too much. They know how to maneuver the system, just like us inmates know how. When I was an inmate, know how to maneuver the system. So the reason why I keep saying you need an oversight committee, because you need somebody that's advocating fairly. And I'm not talking about, because you have a lot of these groups that are completely to the left. They're insane also, in my opinion. They don't understand the criminal mind or the intent. And then you have these abusive guards they're not getting proper training. No one's, a lot of them couldn't make it in the police department, so they end up as guards and they're not qualified. They have anger issues themselves. They're using steroids themselves. They're using drugs themselves. They're bringing in weapons and different things, and they're advocating for different groups to hurt other groups. So they manipulate those numbers for people to believe that you need solitary confinement on these many inmates. I don't believe you need it to that extent. There's other ways to punish inmates, and we can run through them another time. But I give you 100 different ways besides visitation rights, commissary rights, telephone rights. But I think I've seen some bad wardens in some of the prisons, and I've been in company of some very good wardens. And like anything else, the leadership's very important, how the rest of the staff works. And I'm a big advocate for Chief Little, that I do a lot of talks for him. He just recently retired. Because of the way he conducts himself, his police force conduct themselves the same way. And the same thing in the prison system. You need to have somebody that really cares and is trying to help the inmate, but also punish the inmate. It's a duel. I'm one of the guys that say that there was so many good police officers that were good to me. My parole officer, Sharon O'Brien, was very good to me. One of the wards I spoke about the other day in MCC, Miss Eldridge, was a very good woman to me. She was a caring person, but at the same time understood that we needed to be punished. And I got that. If you do something wrong, you got to be punished. But to what extent is the issue of where it becomes punishment or becomes extreme abuse? And that's what it needs an oversight because of this. A year wasn't much. I spent years in solitary confinement. In Brazil, I spent almost 3 years there with 56 guys or 58 guys. I don't remember the exact count, in a 12-man cell. So I don't know which one was better or worse. No showers. We showered off of buckets of water, a spigot. Rained inside our cells. Again, we defecated in holes. Mosquitoes, bugs, and barrels of food the size of this room. In a third world country, we were rats and mice and bugs inside our food, and you have to eat it. At other times, we can bribe some of the cops to get pizza or something else in there, but on a regular, that didn't happen. It was the rice and beans daily in soiled and food that who knows what the guards were doing to it. You have some mean guards out there, and you had some guards in a third world country where they were raping the inmates, so it wasn't a situation where very easy to survive. Here's what I have to say. I did the insert of Linda Scarpa's book, so we know each other very well. I know her brother, Greg Scarpa Jr., very well. And I know that 51 CIA agents falsified documents and signed them and lied about the president interfered with the last election, knowing they lied. I also know there was a hearing recently where 3 of the CIA agents were confirmed to have lied about the assassination of Kennedy. So how much faith I have in, especially back then, in something I understand, because I understand this form of killing, and I never believed it, obviously. I think they believed the technology would never catch up to what it did today. And do I believe that Greg Scarpa Sr. had knowledge of that and was involved somewhere with the CIA? Yes, 100%. Do I believe the corruption is at an all-time high, and why? One of the reasons why I decided to get involved in politics is because I'm looking at these politicians, a lot of them, financially and what they're doing. If RICO was ever brought into them like it was in the mafia, I think we could topple most of the corruption that's going on in this country. We need a system of sincere, not partisan, it should be bipartisan effort to clean up this country for the corruption financially to what's going on with our money, with these slush funds, with us Social Security that's disappearing and people are 120 years old. It should be these pay-for-play schemes that are going on. And I recognize gangsters when I see them. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to get involved, because I'm a rehabilitated criminal from 15, 20 years. Actually, my crimes were back 25 years ago. And I'm watching what's going on, and I know they're criminals. I could see them, I could smell them, I understand them. And so, I decided to put my hat in the race, get involved on a local level in the borough here, and hopefully continue my political career, and hopefully I can make a difference to this country, a small difference. Now, Lucky Luciano himself, I never met. I was too young at the time. But you know, the funny thing is, these names to people are huge names, right? But to me, they were household names because Blackie, Charlie Luciano, was his first cousin. So I grew up as a 3 or 4 year old kid on his lap. Guys like him, Jimmy Burke from Goodfellas, his family and his son was my best friend, and one of my best friends, Frankie, who ends up dying at a young age. These are huge names in the world of the mafia. The public doesn't understand them. John Gotti Sr., I know him since I'm a kid. So, you know, these are the people I was accustomed to being around. So these names, and I can go on with huge names like that in the mafia world. Vito Genovese, my father grew up in Rivington and Delancey Street. So he knew Vito Genovese. My uncle knew him well. My uncle actually slapped his sister when they were kids, and he had to go run and hide in Detroit for years till Vito forgave him. So Vito eventually forgave him. My uncle married one of the bosses from Detroit's daughters, and they spared his life. I grew up in an education from the street, from school, from gangsters. I've learned, and I went to prison with every con man, every manipulator, every blackmail person you could think, every violent person. I have an education that no one else will ever get. That education came from me since I'm 3 years old. No different than a child. You don't have to say things to a child. If they're raised in your house and they see violence in the house, they're going to become violent. If they see a husband being abusive to the mom or the mom being abusive to the husband, these are learned behaviors. I learned to be cynical and to question everything that goes on because of the way I was raised and around the people I was raised. So I think I've seen every aspect of the world that most people don't see, and I've seen it at a young age. Probably by the time I'm 12, I've seen several murders. I've seen anything and everything you can possibly think of that made me say, I got to analyze this before I make a decision. And it's just natural, internal to me to analyze everything as I move around. I can walk down the street. Most people don't look and see cars and people. I kind of analyze everything as I'm walking. My upbringing, being Albanian, being from parents that were born in Albania, coming from a communist country, coming from a history of a country that was suppressed since the Ottoman days. We were a small nation that was being suppressed by larger nations and countries. We were slaved at one time. I think that and the understanding of what it is to be suppressed like that, abused like that, killed like that, my family members, my friends, and also the ability that I had as I got older to travel. I traveled around the world. I lived in places like Cuba, Venezuela, Argentina, Brazil. So I've seen all kinds of different ways of living Africa. And I've seen people suffering, and I've seen people that succumbed to it. I've seen people that fought through it and became very successful. I think that's just part of who I became, that I don't take no for an answer. When people told me I couldn't get a baseball scholarship, I did. When people told me I couldn't pass the Series 7 stockbroker, I did. When people told me when I came from prison I can't change my life, I did. When they told me I can't write books and do movies and be a cover of magazines around the world, I did. And when people told me I couldn't be a politician, and now I succeeded that also. So I don't believe that a no comes in my vocabulary. I just believe you fight through it, work through it, and do what your dream is. And my dream was to become successful again in the right way and save lives, help people, and redeem my life from what it was. And I believe in God. I'm in church every week, and I believe God is my Savior, and I believe God is my driving force, and this is the path He wanted me to go on.